Hello, here's a conversation between me and Matt Porwoll about working with crew. What crew size is ideal, when to fight for a larger crew, and when having a smaller crew is actually the better option. I'm Ben Bloodwell, an award-winning cinematographer working in documentary and commercial production. I've been conducting these casual interviews with other cinematographers in the hope that someone might be able to glean some bits of wisdom from our years of experience by listening in on these conversations. If you want to learn more about Matt Porwoll, I encourage you to click on this link where you can watch our full conversation. If you just want to see us talking about crew, then stay tuned. Because there's obviously a good reason we usually have sound mixers. It's not just like, I mean, they're not that enjoyable to be around, frankly. Crew size and crew, and I think this has changed a lot for me. Like, I used to have so many red lines. I'd be like, well, I'm not working. Like, and for a long time, pre-COVID, it was, I won't work without, I need a sound mixer. Unless there's like a compelling reason. Like for many years, I shot Intervention, which I loved. That project was like dear to my heart. I love it. It was great documentary filmmaking. And we were just running around and jumping into cars with, addicts and things like that. And it just made sense. It's like, yeah, you can't, having a sound mixer in the field like that. And it was also sort of to promote the vision that this isn't we were trying to obviously not let the addicts know what we're doing. That's a whole part of the show. So having somebody as unprofessional as me trying to mic you up probably helped with that. But then since then, I used to draw the line because there's certain companies that started making the model of like shooting high-end documentary where it's like, well, we'll hire like multiple DPs, but we won't hire a sound mixer. And I just started to get, not only because I have a lot of friends who are really good sound mixers, but also just it becomes a bandwidth issue for me a little bit. And then like just not being like, I want to focus on the image as much as possible. And like, if I'm also like really listening for the rustling of a microphone, that's, I can't do everything.
What can a sound person do? They can jump in and actually fix the mic while I'm shooting something else, or I can just frame them out and
exactly.
Like, you can keep the cycle going.
That's the biggest thing for me is it's just like it's a person power, how many people you need to get a job done. It's just at a certain point, like, well, yeah, exactly. It becomes very inefficient just because there's a person who does the job. I mean, I remember I was working with one of these companies that did this. It was a great job, traveled all over the place, 2 DPs, which is great because you don't get to hang out with DPs a lot. So it was nice. That was like, oh, all right. And we were shooting in a situation, we had the typical, like we had a lav going into each camera and then a shotgun on the camera. So it worked fine, we were most of the time. And then suddenly like a third person came onto the scene or something. Or actually, I think we had already compromised down to having like only lavs on all the cameras. And then a fifth person came in or something. And the producer started like panicking and being like, well, what do we like? How are we going to get audio? And we're like, we can't wire them. We just
bring a sound person.
And I know, and it was very hard. I always tell it, sorry, because it was a very nice, like I said, the production was very nice. They were very cool, but it was very hard not to be snarky in that situation when they asked, like, well, how do you handle this normally when this happens? And be like, well, I don't usually handle this, but we'll figure it out. And we figured it. We ended up getting like a smaller C camera and using it as a mixer but again, of course, it cost us hours. But anyway, my whole point being that was my red line for a while, and now I feel like the things have changed a lot. First, a lot of the technology has changed, which helps a lot. It is a lot more, I can do it. I can actually grab a sound kit and probably do it, and there's enough wiggle room and levels and. I'm recording right now on one of these little Rode lav mics that I just put on, and it records itself, and and also transmits to the camera. It's pretty low maintenance. So I always am like, in theory, yes, we have the technology to do and all that, but I always sort of have the caveat. I don't know about you, but my caveat is always like, it's almost like an insurance policy, or like if we have the right people to do the job on the crew, including a sound mixer in this case. Like you're moving closer to me being able to guarantee you getting exactly what you want. Whereas if you have me doing sound and doing camera, it's probably going to be fine. Like I'm capable of doing it. I'm very good at my job. but you're moving slightly further away from that guarantee, you know, which I think that's like a big dynamic, like depending on your budget, like how much are you willing to pay for having that guarantee versus rolling the dice a little bit, you know?
And also, like, why did you call me? Because I would assume that you called me because you've seen work that I've done.
Right.
If you've heard work that I've done, that's probably not great. That's why you're calling me.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want me to deliver what you've previously seen, then that's part of the insurance policy.
Yeah. Right. So where do you draw the lines with like sound, for instance? Is that I know that, and I will say, this is dangerous territory for us as DPs, because it's like, we don't want to say, well, I'll do it without sound, or, you know, any lines are.
Yeah, no,
I don't know.
I'm very clear about it. And I've done videos on doing your own sounds, you know, lav techniques, all those kind of things. But every single one of them, same with producers, is it always comes with that asterisk at the beginning, which is why. Is there a reason for the story? If it's a budgetary reason, I'm not interested, honestly, because it's going back to your insurance policy. Like, if your budget is lower, then that's already making it harder for me to do what I need to do, to then add something else on top of it. But if there's a reason for the story, then I am all in. And it's the same. I mean, intervention does not make sense to have a sound recordist running through. Cartel Land did not make sense to have a sound recordist running through. But in those situations when it did, we brought one, you know?
Right.
I feel so bad for trekking Peter Miller through the mountains in Arizona, but we needed somebody.
Oh, he loved it.
He did it. He did love it. You know, the trade did not make sense to have. I mean, it's exactly the same as intervention. You know, it was just a producer and a cinematographer. Right. But there was a reason for it, so it made sense. But the other thing is, first question is why for the story. Second question is, yes, but I am telling you right now what the compromise is, which is there are going to be situations that we will not capture perfectly. Right. And reminding everybody that sound is far more important than picture in documentaries. So if you're letting that slide,
say that,
you better be okay with it.
You're not supposed to say that part out loud.
I know. It makes us feel more humble, you know, that we're like, but
it is 100% true. It's 100%. It's so true. I always say, like, the sound, having bad sound is far worse than having bad cinematography in a documentary. It's so much more forgivable to have bad cinematography. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it is sort of, it does go to this thing. Like, I never try to say, I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, I never want to be like a Dr. No, I call it, on a job where someone's like, we don't have a sound mixer for this, especially once you're on the job. You never want to be like, well, we can't do that then. I'm not doing that. Because I don't know if you've ever I've had crew members who I turn to and be like, we have to do this. And they say, we can't do it. And they just look at you with this like blank face. And there's nothing that kills
There's always
creativity.
A way to do it.
It's like, don't tell me there's not a way to do it. Tell me it's going to cost me $10 million, you know, and then I can go to the producer with that and be like, we have a solution, you know. And I feel the same way about like with the sound. It's exactly what you said, is that the idea, I would never say like, we can't do it. I can't do sound. I can do sound. This is what that will mean. Like I know some directors of photography, not really in the documentary world, but who won't pull focus, for instance. I think that's less and less nowadays, but I was always shocked when I worked with somebody to be like, I just don't pull focus. I'm like, you never pull your own focus? Because sometimes it's better.
I never don't pull
focus. Yeah, every once in a while it suddenly occurs to me that I have a crew member on the set that probably knows how to pull focus. And that I have a wireless focus device.
But what's funny is every time that I then ask them to do it, I'm like, I can do it better.
Yeah, right. Unless that's a feature film versus, when I operate on a feature, every once in a while I'll operate on a feature and I'll have a great like focus puller. And to me, I'm in awe of them. Like, cause you're just like, because I still stay in sort of documentary mode a lot of the times where I'm like, I'm going to go look at this now. I'm going to go do this. And the boop, boop, boop. It's amazing. A good focus puller. Oof. So different than when I did it.
On the crew thing, I think that's also a great segue into ACs because, you know, I think it's been, for me, I almost never have one or get one, I should say.
ACs.
It's very difficult. ACs.
Interesting.
What the caveat I will say is that oftentimes people will ask, like, do you need one?
Right.
And there's that hint of, we don't really want somebody, but are you one of those DPs that require it? Because there's lots of those that are out there. And, you know, I think part of it too is every time that I bring somebody on, it's not like it was when we were assisting, is that I work with somebody.
Right.
And then the next time I get to have another AC, I call them back and now they're shooting.
Right.
Like nobody stays in long enough for me to have a rapport. Mm-hmm. And having come from the assisting background, like just like with sound, like I know how to do this.
Right.
And sometimes it's easier for me to do it than to take the time to walk somebody else through it.
Right.
Because dock ACing is not your typical ACing. It's like you're managing gear organization, you're charging batteries and media. And like, since all the gear is mine, I know how it was packed. I know what I have. They never get to go through it. So like, am I going to sit there and spend an hour walking you through all my cases, or am I just going to walk over there and get it?
Right.
So like, you know, that's tricky. But the other thing that I would say that makes this current situation harder of everybody is moving up so fast, you don't get them all the time, but you also don't get to have the same person on an entire project.
Right.
Which is where we came from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I learned everything that I'm doing now is because I assisted the entire film with the same DP and the same sound mixer.
Yeah.
So I learned story, I learned verite techniques that way. And I wasn't just a gear organizer. Right. But now it's like the thought of flying an AC with us is impossible. And, you know, and I mean, I was on a job recently where we were in San Francisco and I said, or no, we were in New Orleans. And I said, this is why flying an AC makes sense, because I had an AC in New Orleans. But guess what? It's all my gear. So I'm now taking all of it to the airport by myself. I'm unloading it all once we land. I'm taking it all to my hotel room to build the cameras, to charge the batteries, because the AC is local. They're not staying at the hotel. They're at home. Right. So now they just show up in the morning to like load it into the van. And I'm like, I did all the work.
Yeah. And you don't want to sit at you don't want to have this AC in your room when you've just did this long flight going through all the equipment. You're like, I'm just going to do it. Like, 100%.
But then it comes back and they're like, why is your overtime so high? And I'm like, because I'm literally working 18 hours a day to get up before call to prep everything. Staying afterwards to charge and rebuild for the next day. Like, if you take that money that you're paying in my overtime, which at that point I'm not excited to get because I would much rather sleep and eat dinner. Translate that into a hotel room at the very least for a local AC, or just fly somebody. Like, it's not, you're adding $300. Like, what's the big deal? So that's the kind of stuff that when we would just travel with them, it was all built in. We're like, we were a unit that we all had time to manage ourselves, and that you just don't get that anymore.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm a bit older than you are. So I remember when I was a camera assistant in documentaries, it was a team. Like, we traveled like a band. There was me, the director, the DP, usually Marie's, who I was like very lucky to just be able to, I basically assisted with her on every project she did. And it wasn't even negotiable. It was just like, oh no, we're bringing Ben, obviously. And then we'd have like David Hawks or Brenda Ray, or, you know, we'd fly with them. That was the package. We'd all fly together. And it was not only it's great on like a personal level because you make really great friends, but also like a consistency, like you just don't have to explain what we're doing here, what's going on. This little, oh right, don't bring that up around that subject, I forgot. Like, you know,
the language is there.
It's all there. I mean, that is the past, and that is important. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say, I again, one of my red lines used to be the AC. I'd be like, I need an AC now. I basically had said, okay, now from now on, I need an AC, because I'd really gotten used to. I think I did a lot of documentary TV is pretty like AC heavy. In fact, they usually have like, I forget the first time I worked with like a tech, what do they call it? They had a role that was just basically the tech guy who like sat in the room and didn't even come into the field with us, which I was baffled by. He just sat and when we returned the gear, he'd go through everything. I was like, what? That's an AC, but he's just not coming into the field. Anyway, we ended up turning him into an AC, but it was great because you end up learning this rhythm of working where you can rely on an AC, especially for things like lens changes, things like that. But I do think it has become, they often are like, do you need an AC? And it has become a little bit of like, well, I don't. Like I'm very good at being an AC. I was a very good AC. I can do this stuff. And like, is it a luxury or is it necessary? I'm a little bit on the fence about it. And I think it does. I think you have to look at it job by job. How complicated is it? Are we shooting on zooms or primes, which is something I do want to touch on at some point with you. And I don't know. One of the things that I think is interesting is sort of the rise of the operator AC. That's the thing that I think has changed a lot. Because what often happens now is we don't have an AC. Oh, but we do have a budget for an operator. And I was like, well, great. So that operator is going to be an operator / AC. And that makes a lot of sense. Because the other part that I always kind of bemoan is not just that I don't get an AC, but we're also not teaching, people aren't learning stuff in the field. Like you and I learned a lot of stuff by watching other people work. So the operator AC kind of starts to take that role. I mean, this is a good question, is like, because this is something that's come up for me a few times where they hire an AC and suddenly that AC is out shooting B-roll. And you're like, Like, how do you draw those lines as far as like, well, what point is that, like, even just for like screen credit and in an ideal world, rate changes a little bit if you're an AC who's actually operating now. And then let alone if they go out and shoot like a scene, which in the documentary world could suddenly happen. Like, oh my God, you're over there. We need someone to capture that thing that's happening. Pick up a camera and get it, which is fine. I'll never say like, don't shoot it.
Right. But yeah. Well,
another tricky territory.
Another tricky thing, because what I will say, and I think we do slightly different things. Like I don't do a lot of TV stuff.
Right.
But what I will say is that I think that the mentality from that world is shifting over, where for me, I am pretty adamant that unless there's a real need for it, I do not like two cameras shooting at the same time.
Sure.
I think, there's a dance involved. And if it's somebody who is not on the film the entire time,
right.
That's where it's a different story.
Right. Right.
Very different situation. But if it's just a hired in day player, who's coming in to be a second camera, it changes the dynamic of everything. And so I don't like to have two cameras playing. I also
are you talking about verite here, or is that you're like in a verite?
I'm talking about verite.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I mean,
yeah,
interviews. I kind of wish you could go back to the days of single camera interviews.
Right. Yeah, but that's not happening.
It's never going to happen. But no, I think that there's a lot of things, and again, I'm never going to say no to it, but there's something about the just quantity over quality that's taken over a lot.
100%.
And I like to try to refocus that as much as possible, whether we're talking about sound, to have a recordist or not. Both are viable as long as there's a reason for it. To have two cameras or not to have two cameras, there's a reason for it. But what I don't want to do is let's just spray stuff down. And that ends up happening when you have an assistant who is also an operator, or their kind of contract is negotiated around that, where we'll just have another camera laying around just in case. Right. And I'm like, the just in case means you're going to use it.
You're going to use it all the time. Yeah.
It's like, why? Because then when it comes to if the director or producer just sends them out to shoot B-roll, and that's a whole nother conversation for us to talk about is B-roll, are they just grabbing stuff for the sake of grabbing stuff, or is there a motivation behind it? Like B-roll, everybody says B-roll is not B-roll, it's A-roll, which is true. It's like, what's the intention behind how it's being photographed?
Right.
And have we had the ability to talk about that before you just send them out and do it?
Right.
And all of it, if it's just like, if you're going to treat every other aspect of this film of just anybody can go out and grab it. And I'm not saying that these operators and assistants aren't good at what they do.
Right.
They're just, we haven't had the creative conversations.
Right.
Then it's like, then why am I here? Like, why not just have somebody else be shooting this? And, I'm not trying to say that like we are above a certain level, but
we definitely are, Matt.
We are. But no, but I think, there's I do think that everyone should have that motivation from the beginning, because it's always going to fall apart to the end. But
yes,
to approach a project with creative integrity and purpose.
Right.
But when you start it with these kinds of things of what's your gear rate without telling what the project is.
Right.
I'm telling you right now, we're not having a sound mixer, and you don't get an assistant. I'm like, you're putting the cart before the horse.
Right,
like, can we talk about all of these things as to why?
Right. Get a holistic vision of the project.
And then once I have that vision, I will happily start shaving stuff off left and right.
Right. Yeah. On the crew thing, it's interesting though, because I find more and more on both features and television, the only way I often will get a camera assistant is that they are able to operate. And that's where I start drawing the lines. I'll be like, and first of all, I know a few ACs who are really good operators that I can trust. So I'll be like, that person, can do this. And I also find it very important to be like, well, on an interview, if the angles are not in a place where I can be watching both and, especially with focus and stuff, it starts to become like, okay, we should have someone else operate the camera and I'll operate this camera. Especially if it's sort of the profile-y look or something like that. I have the AC look and sit and operate the camera. And it's like, that's still an AC to me, which is very different. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not how it used to be. That's an AC. Now, if we shoot a scene and they're like, well, we need someone on a tripod, covering this conversation, you're going to be over here and we just need them to be locked on this person talking. I'm like, well, that's an operator now.
That's an operator.
That person's making decisions based on my instructions. They're not doing any lighting or anything like that, but they're operating. And then if they say they got to go out and shoot a scene, I'm like, well, you have an additional cinematography situation here. and really, I hate to say, but we have to look at the real, you have to and there's some people
that's
that
not
I'd be
why
like, you
were not hired for that job.
And I have a great crew. That's one of the great things I loved about We're Here is that we had a whole crew of people in the camera department that I was like, oh, I got COVID, shoot, but Justin can step in and I know he can do it. And I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And he'll have to, I'll have to be talking him through the things and everything like this, but he's capable of doing it because I've seen his work. And, but it is interesting. Like this,
but that's where like you make those decisions. I mean, I think about like Hate Rising.
Yeah.
It's like, it was you, me, and Jerry.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, at that point, nobody's thinking of anybody as like the cinematographer on this film. It's like, it's just three people shooting this movie.
Right.
And you can trade each other out, and it's a lot more fluid that way because the decision was made of who those people were going to be, as opposed to just like
whoever happened to be the AC that day.
Let me just elevate you in this moment.
Right.
It's like, no. Let's have somebody that's good and capable and able to think for themselves. And again, all of this to say that most assists, I shouldn't say most actually, but a lot of assistants are very good at doing this and can think for themselves. But that's not why we called. But
they're also, I mean, I have to say on the other side of that, when I was an AC, I hated the moment. They'd always be like, this is a great opportunity for you. Because I'd be like loading magazines because that's how old I am. Right. And I'd be, I'd be like pulling focus. And then they'd be like, oh, here's your great opportunity. You get to operate. And suddenly I'd have a camera in my hands. And I was like, you know what? When I woke up this morning, I have prepared everything in my brain and organized it to take care of this DP the best I can on every level. And now I'm having to make the creative decisions about framing and stuff like that. And I hated it. It was not like, it's not what I wanted to do that day. Like, if you hire me as an operator, love it. That's great. And I'll also help you out. But it's that mental thing of like, I don't know. I just feel like you're either assisting or you're operating to a degree.
They think about the amount of weight that you're putting on that person.
Yeah, as you're shooting, you're thinking about, are those batteries charging? How many mags do I have loaded right now? And I'm operating a camera, things like that.
And if they're worth their salt, they would. There's no chance that if they're going to send the assistant out to shoot something, they're not sitting down with the director beforehand, like we have the opportunity to do to say. What are we trying to get out of the scene?
Look?
Like we have that crutch of the director explaining it to us. Absolutely. They don't get it. They're just gonna be like, just go capture it. And then I'd be sitting there being like, is the director even gonna like this? Like, why am I here?
That's right. Exactly.
And that's not good for them. You know?
Nobody's happy in that situation.
But on the flip side, it is funny because like I think that's a big part of how I shot Cartel Land. Is because I was Wolfgang's assistant.
Oh, absolutely.
On Escape Fire, Heinemann's first film, and I ended up doing a lot of those like B-roll, time-lapsey things.
Right.
Sometimes Matt would tell me what he wanted. Most of the time, not.
Right.
And so it's either I can totally screw it up and literally never work with him again.
Right.
Or I can get a sense of what he wants and then get it done and then be called to do something else because I'm a lot cheaper than Wolf on the next project. And so, but you know, there are those moments that it certainly can be an opportunity. It's just like,
right. But on the crew thing, so what is your perfect size crew? I mean, I know like after everything we've just been talking about, but let's say you're shooting a basic documentary that involves some verite and some interviews. It's 2 cameras because everything is at least 2 cameras now. Let's say you don't necessarily have a gimbal. It's just, you know, oh yeah, we're going to drive around. We've got like 3 or 4 locations we might do in a day. Like what size crew, if it was less than a certain amount, would you be like, you know what I mean? Or like, what would that crew look like to you if someone were to ask you what they need?
I mean, I think the goal is you've got director, DP, sound, AC, assuming that it's, because I feel like the AC can sometimes it's either an AC or a PA.
Right.
Even, I mean, a PA to me is fine because it's just someone to help move stuff.
Right.
But I think also a dedicated PA. I feel like that's the crew. So director, DP, sound, AC, PA.
Yeah. People often forget about the PAs. I feel like I've often shown up on jobs where I've been very specific about like, I think we need this. And then there's no PAs. And I was like, oh yeah, someone has to drive the cars. Like I'm happy to drive. I don't know. I like driving personally, but there's a lot of situations where I'm driving with the subject and like suddenly we don't have enough drivers, which is the dumbest thing. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Not enough drivers and too many cars.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's always multiple. And we've had that conversation. That's another one. It's just the vehicles. Like big fan of minivans. Don't get SUVs unless you're like driving up mountains or something. I don't know.
Even then, we were minivan exclusively on Cartel Land.
Yeah.
We destroyed them.
Yeah.
But we did some serious off-roading in a Dodge Caravan.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's such a flexible it's like it was designed for documentary production. You can get the equipment in there. It's not high up, so you can load in and out relatively easily. It's got all the doors. And then you can also use it as a moving platform to shoot from, which is very, you know, and then they give you an SUV or something and you're like, shoot out the window. You're trying to cram the camera through the window or something. It's like if we had an SUV or if you had a minivan,
just open the door.
Yeah, exactly. I also feel like I want to talk to the editor, and this is another one. Note this one down. That's another one we can talk about.
We were saying that we should have producer credits. We should also have editing credits.
I know. Yeah. Oh, that would be kind of an amazing poll if you were. Well, technically,
pre-edited by.
I'm editing by not shooting that. Every time I turn off the camera, I'm editing. You know, at the very least, assisted.
I'm
editing.
giving you what I'm giving you. You're only working with the source material.
That's right.
Working with the moment.
I did the first pass in the field, baby.
Rough cut editor.
Yeah, but I almost feel like shooting. It's the same thing with single camera. And with primes, these type of things, it's like I almost want to have a conversation with the editor to be sure they know and have done this before. Because if you're working with an editor that does reality shows or does, you know, then they're used to just getting like every moment is on camera. We got that. Oh, it's just a matter of we do a paper edit of the dialogue and we just because we know you have all the shots and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but if you work with an editor who has done work in like real verite filmmaking, that's been single camera and things like that, they know you look at the footage and you build the scene around that. I mean, I don't want to pretend like I know. I'm not a very good editor, as will become very clear in this project. But I do believe I've seen the work of really great documentary editors, and I feel like there's a difference in their process. And it's just less. And frankly, it's probably the amount of time they have to do it too. I mean, it's probably not fair to the I know, having shot on some of these reality shows, I know the schedules they work on, and it's all well and good to be like, can't you be more creative about how you build a scene? And they're just like, go fuck yourself.
I have 20 minutes to do this.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's the equivalent of them coming and being like, why didn't you get more establishing shots of that house? It's like, because we had to go roll off to lunch because nobody wanted to pay meal penalties. Yeah. I do feel like that is something that's been on my list for a long time. Is like I've gotten to know a few great editors, And I feel like on jobs, I never know if it's appropriate to ask who the editor is. You know, it always seems like, oh, now he's asking who the editor is. But I feel like it's important. Like, this is the person it's like,
I know.
It's like your relationship with a doctor. You know, they could totally reveal shit you didn't want. You know, like, are you going to include those moments where I, you know, did a little move? Because some editors are like, it gives it energy.
I know.
Yeah, that's another. We'll save those thoughts. We'll do an editor conversation at some point.
It is funny that they never tell you. I mean, like,
often they don't know.
I was just in a color session.
Yeah.
And is when I finally met the editor, but no one ever even said what his name was. I was like,
whoa,
wait, who are you making suggestions to things? And like, oh, you cut the film. Like, nice to meet you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But then the times when you actually know the editor and they can call you and be like, you know, it'd be really great.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where like verite stuff when you're going back, but it's like, I would love to go to an editor and say, what are you missing? What can I give you?
Right.
To round this out. That goes back to the B-roll stuff of like, is there something now that you've gotten into the cut that there's an intention that you would like where we can just replace that shot that's kind of generic, like with something else? Do you want that at night? Do you want all those things, you know? Like, give me more close-ups because I'm feeling like everything is been super wide. Like, I'm open to that stuff because we all want a good story.
Or sometimes it'll be like, hey, you keep doing that shot, that weird. I don't use those. You know, like I would love to get
I'll stop
that
wasting
note.
My time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I really liked him, but if you're not going to put him in the show, I don't want to do him. Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah, I think that would be amazing to have that kind of, and I think that is supposed to be sort of the role of the director, to be that bridge, right? Like the director, but it's becoming more and more rare. I don't know if you experience this, but I experience it. To be working with a director that's going to be in the edit is rare now. Like, I'll be working with someone who's like, I don't know, I'm just giving this over. That's where, like, I mean, that's a very broad auteur theory.
That's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. But it is the lack of an auteur, to sound really snooty about it. That's a problem in documentary filmmaking right now. I feel like they just have mechanized it to the degree. I think there's some people who are doing it, even in the reality space. There are people who have said like, no, this one director is going to carry it through. And you see the difference. Like, that's one person's vision of a project, as opposed to, like, we shoot everything in the field the way we know you expect to see it. We're not going to take any risks because, you know, because if you take a risk, you need to have someone who will follow through with that risk in the edit and say, totally. No, I agreed to do that. And then you get like the most bland, vanilla, boring stuff ever.
I mean, that fits for so many things even like with color, you know, it's like there's certain decisions that if I know that I can go to the color grade,
right, then
I will purposefully under overexpose something to be able to pull it back later. But if I'm never going to be invited in and like the editor is going to color it, then I'm just going to play it safe. But it's not going to be as good or have the ability to be expanded out to something, you know, like it's, if you have that follow through of a project, then it's better.
That's where finding like the right director, that first phone call can be very important. Like, are you going to be a person who, am I going to at some point talk to somebody who can say, yes, let's do that risky thing? Like when we're out in the field, like, you know, it'd be really cool to shoot this whole thing wide on a tripod and let it play out, you know, like you have to have a director on board for that. Because if they deliver that to some boss, that person's going to get fired a lot of the time, because they're going to be like, what do you mean you didn't get any coverage? You know, but sometimes that's what makes the difference between, you know, an amazing project that's something that people talk about versus, you know, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I always wonder who in Conclave, who should get fired to not shoot any B-roll. Like they never left the...
That was, I got to tell you.
Did they just forget to shoot the outside?
They hired me for that. I had a little problem with downloading that day.
Like, you know what? We'll just change it and then we're never going to leave.
Yeah. I haven't watched Conclave. Is that a thing? They don't do any B-roll because they don't shoot it in the Vatican? Was that the deal? Or I don't know.
It's only contained within the Vatican. So you never like all the cheers.
That's the premise. That's the premise.
The crowd waiting outside about the smoke signals. Like you only hear them. You never see them.
That's the perfect example.
It's great.
How great is that? That like totally. But how many people would actually, if you have more than one person, I feel like you need to have one strong willed person at the helm for that. And to say like,
otherwise you're like, just throw a drone shot in of Rome.
Right. And then you've ruined the whole thing. The whole thing is done. Once you do one cutaway. Yeah. That's true. All right. Yeah. We got to hang out sometime soon. For real.
We got it. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Awesome.
All right. Well, this was great. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks again. All right. Take it easy.
All right. See ya.
Bye. Okay, seems to have worked. Oh. Do a little tail slate for me.